Good afternoon, Ms. Weber. Please sit and make yourself comfortable, and when you are ready, you may begin with your opening comments.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Chairperson Roberts and members of the Commission, thank you, first of all, for your service and dedication to this very important role and responsibility to choose our next judge on the Iowa Court of Appeals. And my goal is to serve the people of Iowa as a judge on the Iowa Court of Appeals. Now, I've had over 18 years as an attorney. I've been a judicial law clerk. As you know from my background, I've been a senior counsel for the United States Secret Service and a trial attorney with the Iowa Attorney General's office. I have had numerous civil jury trials in the past few years, and in addition to my law degree, I have a master's degree in public policy from Georgetown University. I do have some well-rounded experience. I think with my time with the Secret Service, I did not just litigation support, but also some legislative and policy work, and I think that made me a more well-rounded attorney. Now, throughout my career, I have chosen to do public service, and I want this job because I want to do public service in an interesting and challenging setting in a way that contributes to the well-being of society, and I want to do that for the people of Iowa. Now, if selected for this position, some of the qualities that I believe are important that I would want to bring to the position are: 1, strong analytical, legal research and writing skills; 2, thoroughness and dedication; 3, integrity and impartiality; 4, collegiality; and 5, respect. Now, if I could talk about each of those for a few minutes, first of all, I want to talk about it's important to have strong analytical, legal research and writing skills. And I believe that is one of the strengths that I have that I could bring to bear to the court. Judges are primarily at this level applying settled law to cases, to decide the cases. But then the cases have to be written in such a way that it clearly explains the reasoning and the result. And I believe my writing does that. It's easy to understand and reflects attention to detail. It's important at the Court of Appeals not just to be a good writer, but to be an efficient writer, because of the high volume of cases that have to be decided. And I strive to do that, to make the points that need to be made, to cover what needs to be covered, but not to write so much that you're writing, long treatises on every subject. So I have written opinions as a law clerk, and I drafted those opinions. And I feel that that is one of the best ways to become skilled at writing opinions, is to write opinions, and that is something that I've done. I've worked on many types of cases, complex cases, civil, criminal issues, and it's important to be able to have skills to be able to get up to speed quickly in areas, even if it's an area where you don't have a lot of background and experience in. So I think that working in new areas of the law to me would not be a problem, and I think that the work of an appellate judge is different than a trial judge, and these are some of the important skills that really help in that position to succeed as an appellate judge. And the second area I want to talk about is thoroughness and dedication. I'm thorough. I believe I have the dedication and the work ethic to do well in this position. And every dispute is important to the parties. And it's important to give each litigant, each attorney, the time and attention that the case deserves. And it could be everything to that litigant. It could be, his or her freedom at stake, livelihood of family members, relationship. It's important to give the arguments full and fair consideration all the way through, and to be accurate from the facts and the record all the way through to the final citations and the proofreading of the opinion. And third, I would act with integrity and impartiality. Judges must be fair, of course, and decide cases without bias, without regard to gender, race, economic circumstances, other characteristics. I would strive to do that. I want to do what's right according to the law. I'm comfortable with asserting my views and articulating my decision. That's not to say that I couldn't be persuaded otherwise. If debate with fellow judges would cause me to reconsider my views, I certainly could do that. But I'm comfortable making a decision and sticking to it if I believe that it's right, even if it's not popular. I'm honest, and I will tell others what I think. I believe in the rule of law and the Constitution, and I'm not here to advance any personal agenda. I just seek to do justice, and that is the important role that we need on this court. And I believe also that there's a role for judges on the court aside from deciding cases, and that is to be part of overall efforts to look at the system, and maybe be part of committees or to suggest changes if there's systemic problems that a judge or judges can see in a number of cases, to be a part of maybe spotting those problems, recommending solutions for the future. I think we can always look for ways to be better, so there's a separate rule for that process. Fourth, I think I would show collegiality. I grew up in southern Iowa, as you know from my background materials, in Centerville. My roots there do go back quite a few generations. I chose to go away for college and law school, and I worked for several years in Washington, D.C. I think I have the ability to relate to people of all types and backgrounds and to work together to get the job done. And it's fun and it's important. I think teamwork is often the best way to get things done. And in the cases that I've handled, there is a real camaraderie that develops when you have to work closely together on cases. And being able to exchange your views and thoughts on a case with others you're working with really sharpens your focus. I think it improves the outcome to be able to do that and look at new insights that you had not thought of before. And I would try to do that, and I would try to show collegiality with others in my ability to discuss cases, whether it be law clerks, other judges on the court, actively listen to the views of others, and ultimately to reach a decision. And fifth, importantly, I would show respect. Judges should make the right decision based on the law, but also need to treat the attorneys and litigants with respect. To show them that they have the respect and dignity, as part of the process, that their case matters, that you've given them a full and fair consideration in the case. And, of course, a hard thing about this type of a role with a judge is you're always going to disappoint somebody. You're always going to disappoint one side in the process, but they will remember how they were treated, even if they disagree with the outcome. And so I believe it's important to show people, that they have been heard, their voices, have been heard in the arguments. They've had their day in court. They've had that consideration, and they will come away from the process feeling that it has been a fair and a just one. As I've mentioned before in these interviews, as I think many of you have heard, in the Secret Service, we do have a motto called worthy of trust and confidence. And I believe in that. I believe that's important for our courts in Iowa to be worthy of trust and confidence. It's important for the litigants and the parties, the attorneys. It's important for the public to have that confidence in our judiciary and the process of how cases are handled all the way through the court system from start to finish. And I would try to do my best to promote that from within. Now, also on respect, I would respect not just the power, but the limits of the judiciary. And I've talked about this before as well, but I continue to believe in the separation of powers among the three branches of government and in the role of the judiciary in interpreting the law, the role of the executive executing the law, legislature in making the law. So I think it's important for a judge to do his or her best to respect the role of the judiciary and also to not raise arguments for litigants unless it's a rare exception such as subject matter jurisdiction where it's proper. And the judges also should only decide the issues that they need to be decided in that case for that time and save the rest for another day. I have also mentioned before, and I still believe, I think there's challenges to this. The biggest challenge in my mind to this job at the Court of Appeals is balancing that weighty responsibility I think that any of us would feel, that I would feel certainly, to get it right, to reach a just decision, to get the right decision with the need for the efficiency in getting through the workload, to just get the job done. So there would constantly be a balance like that. That would be tough, but I think I would enjoy that challenge. I've had challenges certainly before over the course of my career. Each time I think I've made a change in my career, it's been scary, a little scary, intimidating, certainly starting law school, clerking for federal judges, going to work for the Secret Service, trying to advise the Secret Service officials, and then more recently at the AG's office, trying my own cases and having my own jury trials and to be the one actually in there pursuing, the case in court along with a colleague. And so each step has been scary, but, I have to try to put the internal doubts aside and do my best and believe in myself. And I think each one of these steps I've taken has been worth doing, and I feel the same about this. And I feel that this is worth doing. Every step has made me stronger, and I believe I would enjoy this challenge and that it would be rewarding and fulfilling. In conclusion, I'm from Iowa. I made the choice to come back to Iowa, to my small town roots. I live between Van Meter and Adel. As many of you know, I'm a mom of 4 boys, and they're ages 5 to 15. So a lot of my time is just spent with them and their activities, which is really kind of the best way to put aside work anyway, is to just spend time with the boys and my family. And there is a saying, as I've said before, that the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And so I would point to my background, my record, my experience, and say that the best predictor of how I would do on the Court of Appeals would be the quality of my past work and my commitment to public service. I think that serving on the court is a true honor and a privilege. It's a real public service to the people of Iowa, and I would do my best if I was given that opportunity to serve in that role. So thank you all very much for your consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And we do have a few questions, and
Sure.
we will begin with Ms. Conover.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bloom?
Well, first of all, you have one of the finest academic records that we've seen in the 6 years I've been doing this. And so
Thank you.
that's pretty strong evidence of your record. Do you feel that your trial experience that you've had would put you in a position where you were sufficiently respectful of cases that you would be reviewing on the Court of Appeals, that you haven't been a district court judge? And so one of our concerns, of course, is can you adjust to the environment that these cases are in and be respectful of, not sort of nitpicking on the balls and strikes?
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of a question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Bloom. That's a good question. I think that whether serving as a trial judge or, in my case, not having been a trial judge but trying cases, jury trials, in the courts, I think either way it's important that you have that perspective on being in the system and part of the system. And I think I have learned that. I have an appreciation for the many things that happen quickly, through the course of, say, a trial, the many decisions that have to be made by the judge, by the arguments of the parties, the objections. There's a lot that happens all day long, every day, in a short period of time. And so I think I would have the appreciation, though, to recognize the differences between the day-to-day and many things that happen that aren't going to affect the outcome of a case, and then there's those few issues that really do matter, that could affect the outcome of a case. And a lot of that would have to do with the standard of review on appeal that you're looking at, how you're looking at the issues that the parties raise, and really what issues the parties choose to bring forward and articulate. So I think by having been in it, you can have that perspective of separating out every little thing that you could, like you said, you could nitpick on, but the things that really are important to the result on appeal. And it's important for our process that we have that chance. The parties can correct an error. If there truly is a legal error in a case or something that, affected the outcome, to have that faith, that understanding that in the end it can be made right. And that's the role of the appellate courts.
Okay.
So I think from having been in it and done it myself, I think I would have that understanding and experience to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Spees?
Thank you. Knowing some of the judges you work for, I know you've had some exacting professional experiences.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your mentioning being scared, because I think it's a healthy attribute. What do you think is the most scary aspect of making a transition from a litigant for the state of Iowa to becoming an appellate judge? Are there some shortcomings of yours that you're concerned about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think it's mostly just that feeling of, like I said, I think I always try to do my best and want to get it right. And so I think it would just be kind of the switch from going from an advocate to somebody who's an impartial, neutral decider in a case as a judge, putting aside any kind of feelings that you might have, or you might have made arguments as an advocate, and just looking at it and trying to get the right result as a judge, and making that transition. I think I can do that, and I think my past experience has helped that I've been a clerk and I've been in that role before, not just only as an advocate, but it definitely does take, a little bit of a change in the mindset. And I'm pretty thorough, like I said, and so I think, again, the balancing, trying to get it right with trying to get through the amount of cases and the workload is one of the biggest hurdles and challenges to this position, I think. But I would just try to do my best to, recognize that many of the cases will be settled areas that don't take, a large amount of time to decide and reach a result, but there are cases that do. And so those cases, those few ones that you do need to spend more time on, you have to be able to separate those out and recognize that some do take more time. So those are some of the things I think that would be a challenge for me, but.
Mr. Hoyting.
I have no questions, but want to say thanks for coming back to Iowa, and I enjoyed our conversation, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Angela.
Ms. O'Brien.
Questions, thank you.
Mr. Sukup.
No questions.
Mr. Goodman.
Ms. Weber, I was reading about the Kristen Anderson case, which you defended, and I see that received a lot of publicity and ultimately resulted in a $2.1 million verdict, and obviously for the conduct that occurred. I have this question. There was a motion to dismiss filed, successfully filed by you. What was the basis for the case initially being dismissed by the district court?
Yes, it was actually kind of it was, obviously motion dismissed very early in the case. It was sort of a technical legal argument that the complaint itself or the petition had not pleaded the exhaustion of administrative remedies in the Iowa Civil Rights Commission, which, as you know, is a process that you have to go through to be able to exhaust. And so that had not been mentioned in the complaint, and that was, in some context, that is a problem, that courts dismiss on that basis. And there was some federal case law that I had cited to, and we did have the district judge agree with our argument on that and dismiss the case. And then, of course, it was overturned in the Court of Appeals. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Law.
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Gray.
I have no questions.
Ms. Pearson.
Thank you for being with us today. You commented that past behavior is the best indicator of future performance, and obviously everybody coming today in front of us has very unique qualifications, but what are 3 or 4 words or phrases that you would use that indicate your past performance, that it would be the best indicator of future performance?
Yeah, that's a good. I think, kind of the key words that come to mind, I do think research and writing skills would be some of my best past experience that I would bring. I think trying to always treat others with fairness and integrity and respect. I believe I have done that. It's important, say in a trial with opposing counsel, to treat the other side, with fairness and respect, and set aside whatever differences you may have in the case, because you should still get along and, be able to walk away at the end of the day and be professional and be colleagues. So I think hopefully my, people that, if you've heard from them, they would say those types of things about me, that I'm somebody who, I don't play games. I try to be professional and civil, and, we're dealing with cases based on the facts and the law. It's not personal. And that's also going to be important as a judge, I think, for anybody that becomes a judge, to do that.
Thank you.
Ms. Stanger.
Thank you. Looking at your experience and background, one of the things that struck me to be significantly moving was your work with the human trafficking, and I don't know if it was a commission or board, but some might look at, our experiences or what we have on paper as very perfectionist, very, stellar academics. But these are real issues with a number of layers, and not to take Ms. O'Brien's question from earlier, but there are a number of social complexities to the law. And I just wonder maybe if you could share with the commission, from your experience on the human trafficking or other experiences, how you might take that forward in the very limited review that the Court of Appeals judge might have. What are your thoughts on
I think
those experiences?
Right, and I did have some experience with that. I, at some point, became aware of that this, I don't think I'd known, prior to getting involved, that this was really a problem everywhere in Iowa, human trafficking. And I had some past interest in those types of issues in law school, at least criminal and international criminal issues, and this was an international crime that's, happening in Iowa. And so once I learned about it and got involved, I was a board member for a while, a number of years. And sometimes, I think I wish that I could have done more, and there could be more for me to do in that area, but I worked, you know, as part of the board to try to help increase awareness of the problem. You know, we had conferences and that kind of thing. I did speak at some events to talk about what attorneys can do. And I think it's important to recognize that there are these significant problems out there, and to try to think of ways that, you know, as a society and then within the role that we have, we can try to come together and brainstorm and think of ways that we can help, you know, and maybe not solve it all, but just to work on improvements that we can make that can get to the problem. And so I touched on, I think there is a role for judges to do that, to look at areas where there are issues. Human trafficking is certainly a problem, but there's other areas where in the criminal justice system that there's problems, you know, with areas that maybe need some attention that need to be addressed. And so as a judge, I think there's a role to be a part of committees and looking for solutions to that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Weber. We are out of time, but we thank you for being here today, and we certainly wish you well.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.